Hello, my name is Mihkel Lauk and welcome to the session of change management. I'm going to talk about change management in e-governance. What kind of changes are driven by technology implementation in public service provision. The big transformation happens in governments in all countries. Every country wants to go into e-channel with their public service provision. The demand is growing from the client side. When we're talking about client, we mean either citizens or businesses. And the way how the public services are delivered changes tremendously. In order to understand what kind of changes technology brings into governance life, we need to speak about how the governance is organized and structured. Legislation gives obligation to authorities to perform one or another function, and all those authorities deal with providing this function as effectively as possible. Today, the demand requires provision of public service, which consists several functions, and public service is not an obligation of one authority only. It might be that public services involve several authorities. So today we are actually talking about cross-authority public service provision. And this is a situation which requires completely different organization and budgeting of public service provision. If we consider that one ministry or authority deals with their own obligations, their own functions, they need in e-governance situation, they need information from other authorities as well. And therefore, the information flow that is needed for one public service might come from different sources. For example, Ministry of Interior takes care of population registry, Ministry of Economic Affairs takes care of business registry, and if Ministry of Social Affairs wants to provide some public services, they need information from both those registries and therefore needs to cooperate with those ministries as well. But this creates new challenges, meaning that for Ministry of Social Affairs, if they want to develop their or re-engineer or redesign their public services, they need to cooperate with other ministries as well in order to have the information system supporting the public service provision to be at the same level as needed for Ministry of Social Affairs. And therefore, they need to adjust their priorities of investments as well. If we're talking about e-governance, it's all about investing into information systems that supporting those processes needed for public services. And this is something that is not very organic in current public sector. If we are thinking of how the budgeting process happens, every ministry and authority, they have their own strategies, their own priorities, and they are making their budgets according to their own priorities. And those priorities, it's often they don't overlap with other authorities, other ministries. So it might happen that if one ministry or authority wants to develop their own e-service, they need to wait for a long time for other authority until they develop their information systems on the required level. And this is something that needs management, and it needs cross-authority management. So when we're talking about changes on state level, it means that on state level we need some kind of management authority that can handle the requirements and priorities also on state level, and manage how the investments and budgeting processes are in the line of state level needs. Second thing is that changes happen in different ways. Most commonly, the changes are perceived firstly on lower levels of organizations, and because those people who are working every day on public service provisions, they clearly understand what is a change and what needs to be done in order to perform better. And they try to make the public services also better from bottom up. This means that authority starts to develop their own supporting system for e-services separately from other authorities. And this creates a situation where every authority builds their own systems, but they are isolated. They are not integrated with other systems from other authorities, and because the bigger picture has not been taken into account. Therefore, bottom-up initiatives usually won't work very well, and the change requires leadership from top. And the change actually means that it's paradigm change and change of thinking of the top management of our public sector. When we're talking about changes, we need to talk also about maturity. Maturity is always something that needs to be considered when we want to change something. And maturity will be discussed in a separate session, but the common capability maturity model levels are, there are 5 levels, from ad hoc to very optimized level. And all those other levels in middle. But for well-considered change, the maturity level must be at least on the 3rd level. The 2nd level is a maturity level where need for change will be perceived, but it's not controlled environment enough in order to make good decisions about changes. So the readiness on the top level and the maturity of the top level management need to be on maturity level 3. There is also an important aspect of ownership. when we are talking about public services and e-services, the owners of those services are usually either ministries or other authorities or departments or local governments. And those public services are not seen on the state level from the umbrella view. Therefore, state needs some kind of management organization that can handle all those changes and responsibilities above the authorities and ministries. Thank you for this session and your attention.